a man, who they say he murdered 3. Strange things have happened there. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. I have seen several psychics about to do their thing who consume massive amounts of coffee to get things moving. This sounds like a good idea. I'm not psychic. I'm not even sure what day it is. But I do consume a bit, as in a whole lot, of coffee just to get things moving. I only drink good coffee unless I'm somewhere other than Laredo. The reason being, we have the best coffee in the universe. The Organic Man Coffee Trike is home to really good coffee. It's too hard to describe how good it is. Swing by 4501 McPherson and see if I know coffee. If you can't get there from there, go to organicmancoffeetrike.shop. Life is too short to drink bad coffee. David Subith sent me a link to a podcast that I thought was excellent. Too bad it turned out to be a Scooby Doo episode. The 1988 mystery about a haunted computer. Nostalgia nerd put way too much into trying to find the rest of the story. The mystery started at Stockport, UK in 1988. The area of interest was dominated by old Victorian era buildings that were being used as commercial offices at that time. An architect had decided to use modern technology to run things while most businesses were still using paper for everything. Back when I was young, about 100 years ago, computers were something used by NASA, and even they didn't really trust the information coming out. Slowly, the home computer came into being, and people began using these ancient beasts to mostly take care of paperwork. If you sent an image over the internet, the person receiving it had to sit there and read a book or a magazine while waiting for the image to come through. Dial up. There were folks out there who saw these desktop creations as a thing of beauty. Computer nerds and geeks were easy to spot from the pocket protector full of pins and things. I think just about every one of them had a little screwdriver in there somewhere. What's the difference between a nerd and a geek? A nerd talks a lot but doesn't do anything as far as we can tell. A geek is weird, but they can solve computer problems and they will talk a lot too. I am disappointed in the geek squad. They no longer wear that signature white tie, white shirt with tie. They tell me that they much prefer the new look. It's easier to keep clean, it's more comfortable, but they don't look like geeks anymore. Getting back to the architect. The computer he bought began doing strange things. It would come on late at night while the cleaning staff was there, and it would make weird noises. Those old computers were nothing like what we have today. You hit the on off switch and then you had to wait while it warmed up. followed by a few minutes of resetting things. The computer at his office would pop back on and scare the cleaner. People working at the office reported strange things going on around the computer. It was said to be haunted. The owner set a camera up to film any uncalled for activity, and he got some wild images. A paranormal investigator got in on it, and he began looking into the goings on. The story of the haunted computer spread around the country. When there was a computer show in May, the computer in question was on display. Folks wanted to see this bizarre office machine, but it didn't perform. Peter Lee, the man doing all the investigation, managed to track down the original writer of the news story, and it was simply a marketing ploy, a hoax, a pile of hooey. David had said it was a scam, but a neat idea for a show. There were other haunted things mentioned, and that makes it a strange thing. Had I put so much time and money into researching a show only to discover it was just a way to gin up interest in computers, I would have been somewhat upset, to say the least. Peter Lee is nothing like me. He was happy to simply get to the bottom of the story. Thinking about a haunted computer got me to looking into things that shouldn't be haunted, yet are. The things like, oh, I don't know, a sports arena. November 15th, 2014, the Laredo Paranormal Research Society were about to look into the reported sightings at the Laredo Energy Arena, which became the Laredo Sports Arena, followed by the Sames Arena. Keep changing names. The arena opened its doors October 2002. It's the state of the art facility. 32,000 square feet. It's the largest indoor convention space in South Texas. Could such a place possibly be the host of a being from the other side? I did some research on the area where the arena was built, but I could find nothing in the way of cemeteries or battles or unfortunate accidents. I did find an airplane that had crashed, killing two crewmen back in, I believe it was 1942, but that wasn't where the arena was built, that was farther northwest. There was nothing there but a bunch of cows and coyotes. I don't even recall ever following any large groups of aliens through the area. It was too close to the airport. We met with Anissa, the director of marketing, so she could fill the team in on what had been happening. She told us they'd been experiencing activity ever since the arena opened. People report seeing shadows moving about the place. One person even saw a full apparition. People experience chills and they hear sounds when there's no possible source. One of the security guards said he heard laughter. Also, they would see kids running around the concourse near Gate D. They would call the office to see if the kids could be followed on camera, but the cameras weren't picking up anything. Antonio Pescador, who is the head of security, filled in some of the gaps in some of the stories. He also accompanied us on the tour of the facility. A woman wearing a white dress has been spotted on the second floor, and the toilets in the women's room will flush on their own. followed by the sink coming on. When the cleaning staff or the security guards finally go to have a look, there's nobody in there. When Anissa was exercising by running up and down the stairs between sections 114 and 15, she stopped to catch her breath. Footsteps could be heard coming up behind her, but there was nobody else there. People will hear dishes rattling in the kitchen of the commissary, and the cleaning staff have reported feeling chills and hearing voices in Spanish in the women's room in section number 202. The door to the cleaning room rattles as if somebody is trying to get out, but when the door is opened, there's nobody in there. After the tour, everybody gathered around to go over the ground rules and pick up their equipment. We stood around waiting for the lights to go out, making the night vision equipment work better. After several minutes, Anissa said the computer that controlled the lights, which had never malfunctioned before, was taking a vacation. It had worked forever up until we wanted the lights out, and now they couldn't turn them off. At last, Mr. Pescador was able to get the computer to turn the lights off, and the investigation began. The team walked into each of the concession stands, asking questions and looking for activity on their equipment. If you're doing a ghost investigation, try coming up with some new ideas on what to say. We hear the same things over and over. Is there anybody here that would like to talk to us? Or, my least favorite of all questions, if you'd like us to leave, make a noise. Okay, then you hear a noise. Now what do? You'd better leave, because you told the ghost that is what you were going to do. I've seen it on TV all the time where they'll say, if you want us to leave, make a noise, and then you hear a crash or a bang or something, and the person continues the investigation. If I was a ghost, I would either do something really nasty, or I would simply stop talking to this person because they have no real scruples whatsoever. EMF detector would flash its light as we were moving, but this was caused by all the electronic equipment that was in every corner of the building. It's important that you understand the equipment that you're working with as well as the location that you're at. Just because an EMF detector is going off doesn't mean that there's something there. I've seen it where people have gotten all excited in the dark because they're getting a response, only to turn on a flashlight and discover they're standing next to a water cooler or some electronic equipment. One of the investigators, Jonathan Martinez, was visiting from Monterey, the Monterey Paranormal Group. He had been looking into paranormal activity for 12 years. He told us that in Monterey, most people didn't believe in paranormal. They thought they were being scammed by somebody. This is odd, seeing as Monterey has so many bizarre reports, from that witch flying from one mountain to another, the same witch that may have attacked a police officer, the ghost or spirit of the nurse that hangs out on the top floor of a hospital. Monterey is a haunted town, and yet people living there think it's all just hooey. As we walked along the concourse, Jonathan saw what looked like a shadow moving along the catwalk up near the ceiling of the dome. He swung his camera around and fired off a few shots, but we didn't see anything on the images later on. The LPRS spent most of the night looking and listening. We caught some EVPs with voices nobody heard at the time, but there were no really good images caught. Later in the following years, I have been to the LEA, or the whatever they call it these days, the Sames Arena, for many occurrences. Graduations are held there, things like that. Once in a while, they'll have a decent musical group come through town. Anytime I see security guards standing someplace where there aren't a whole lot of people around, I'll go over and talk to them and I'll ask if they've seen anything. I get the same response just about every time. They'll look over their shoulder to make sure nobody is listening, and then they'll tell me about the weird things they've seen or heard while working inside the arena. If you feel the urge to write a book and you want to ask people for their stories, it's not all that difficult. Get yourself some good looking business cards, not something your tween cousin made on her computer. You hand them out as you ask questions. You ask, have you ever seen a ghost? Or have you ever seen a UFO or a cryptid? Be prepared for some weird looks from people, as well as some strange activity. People will turn and walk away from you without answering any questions, or they'll simply stare at you like you're growing antlers or something. This is not a recommended activity if you plan on leading a normal life. People are going to talk about you, they're going to spread your name around. You're going to have a reputation. I have never really cared much what my reputation was, as long as I can get some good stories. Ask just about anybody. But if you want to talk to the police, be sure to say that you will keep their names out of it, and then do so. Don't be that guy that says, "Oh, I won't mention your name," and then you put them in the book. Next time you get stopped by the police, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. You'll be amazed by what you will hear from people. For every, I would say, 10 folks that I ask for an experience, I might get one, sometimes two good stories. But like I said, you got to look like you know what you're talking about. If you walk up to this person looking like you just fell off a truck somewhere and ask if they've ever seen a flying saucer, they're just going to assume that you're a nut job. Things can be haunted for unknown reasons. Those experts who tell us why a ghost is in a location don't really know. As of right now, I have yet to hear a ghost tell me why they are where they are or why. We don't really know. We can only search and research and try to find out. The moment you start saying that you know, well, in my book, you start losing a lot of credibility. Some haunted things aren't solid objects, but numbers. How a number can become haunted or cursed is beyond me, but there are stories out there to make you wonder why and how. Just about everybody knows the number of the beast in biblical lore. Revelations 13:18 says, "This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666." People have become very curious and daring over the years, over the past 10,000 years, give or take a few thousand. What's on the other side of that ocean? Who's hiding inside this locked cell? What happens if I mix this green glowing substance with this yellow glowing substance? And what will happen if I type in 666 on my cell phone? This number is believed to connect callers directly to sinister forces. One day, while conducting some law enforcement training, we were in the old abandoned hospital, the one they keep saying is going to be torn down. They've been saying it's going to be torn down ever since it was abandoned, and well, it still hasn't been torn down yet. Anyway, the one everybody likes to talk about. It was the end of the day, and the sergeant in charge of the SWAT team and I were just standing outside talking, and he asked me if I thought maybe the place was haunted. And I said, yes, it probably is. It's an old abandoned building. It has a history. There's got to be something going on inside. As we were talking, I just pulled my cell phone out of my pocket and I just glanced at the screen to see if I'd missed any calls. There was a number on my phone, three sixes. I showed it to the sergeant and he said that was weird. And then we didn't talk about it anymore, which is weird because this same sergeant was with the LPRS on their very first investigation inside that hospital. He must have had trust issues at the time. It's like what I said about me and Ishmael, knowing each other for so many years before we bothered to say anything about UFOs or ghosts or cryptids to each other because we didn't want to have a reputation for being too weird. Someone had to be the first. I wonder how many years after 1836, that's when you could actually dial the phone instead of asking the operator to do it. Somebody must have gotten a wild hair and given it a try. Many have reported hearing a guttural growling sound, unsettling whispers, or even maniacal laughter. Some claim that their phones malfunctioned afterwards and they couldn't get it to work right after. Now, I do tend to take risks that I probably shouldn't. Riding my bike on the Laredo sidewalks, where sidewalk is kind of a suggestion, or walking into dark places armed only with a flashlight, and of course my sidearm, to see what's in there. Talking to a bunch of bikers about whether or not they'd ever seen anything paranormal or not. They all gave me a weird look and then quickly moved away. This number is well known because of its cultural and religious importance. But stories about supernatural experiences are mostly just personal anecdotes. It's a little difficult to record these weird sounds from a cell phone while you're using it. Of course, I imagine there's probably an app now where you can do it. I have yet to ever consider trying to dial 666 on my phone or even somebody else's phone. There are things I just won't do. As for that number showing up on my cell phone that day, later on I went back and I looked and it was no longer there. There are also a few stories about 666, 666, 6666. Now that's taking it a little overboard, I believe. Does Satan really need an area code? Calling this number is said to trap you in an eerie, unending loop of strange noises. Reports describe distorted voices, ghostly moans, and a creepy feeling of being unable to hang up once you've got the phone held to your head, as if your brain is being controlled by somebody else. 999 is said to be a cursed number as well. In Thailand, this number is infamous for granting a wish, but you're going to have devastating consequences. Legend has it that your wish will come true, but tragedy will follow. You wish for a bunch of money, and the next thing you know, your mother or father dies and they leave you some money. Some callers claim to have experienced accidents or misfortune. The phone number is closely linked to Thai folklore. There are a few stories out there, but nothing really weird. Won some money, wound up in the hospital. How about 000 000 0000? This number is said to connect you to the afterlife, resulting in some eerie encounters with the unknown. Callers have reported eerie silence, faint whispers, and disembodied voices. Some describe hearing their name, being called as if by some ghastly, ghostly entity far away. A day after my mother in law had died, my wife received a call on her cell phone. The number was just 10 zeros. She answered the call, but nobody was there. Just a hollow sound as if being called from inside a huge tunnel. Very empty feeling. If you call 2020, the number is supposed to connect you with the future. This mysterious number is rumored to provide cryptic predictions of what is going to happen. Callers say after dialing that number, well, punching it in, they received vague but unsettling messages about upcoming events, often with ominous endings. For those 2 or 3 people listening who don't know, back in the dark ages, we had an actual dial on the telephone, the one attached to the wall, that you had to place one finger in and rotate the dial around for each number that you wanted to contact. If you did call 999 you would take a while because the dial didn't snap right back into place automatically. It slowly rotated back. Don't get me started about dial up internet. That was a whole nightmare on its own. 888 888 8888 is the death number. Well, at least in Bulgaria. In Bulgaria, this number is linked to a series of bizarre deaths, sparking fear of a deadly curse. Many report hearing ominous messages or inexplicable sounds. Uh, Sounds something like you want to avoid just due to its bad reputation. A Bulgarian mobile phone number has been suspended after a series of mysterious events. This number was 359 888 and it has been suspended indefinitely. The first to own this number was Vladimir Grashnov, the former CEO of the Bulgarian mobile phone company Mobitel. Grashnov succumbed to cancer in 2001 at the age of 48. There were rumors suggesting that his illness was caused by radioactive poisoning, which was orchestrated by a business rival. Following Grashnov's death, the number was passed into the hands of Bulgarian mafia boss Konstantin Dimitrov. Dimitrov possession of the number was short-lived as he was gunned down in 2003 during a trip to the Netherlands. The 31-year-old mafia boss, who used to oversee a drug smuggling empire worth $500 million, met his end while dining with a fashion model. The number then came into the possession of businessman Konstantin Dishlev. He died when he was shot outside an Indian restaurant in Sofia, Bulgaria's capital, in 2005. His death coincided with his acquisition of the cursed phone. Oh, the phone number. Dishliev was involved in a large-scale cocaine trafficking operation, and his murder followed a police interception of $130 million worth of drugs from Colombia. How would you like to tell your boss you just lost $130 million worth of product? That's why it's a bad idea to be in the drug trade. Oh, yes, you make lots of money in a very short period of time. Your life expectancy is about an inch long. They have a horrible retirement plan. When somebody dials the number today, they are met with a recorded message stating that the phone is outside network coverage. When questioned about the suspension of the number, a spokesman for Mobitel declined to comment, stating, "We have no comment to make. We will not discuss individual numbers." Did I sound like Thurston Howell? Inside my head, I did. It's 090-4444-4444, the Sadako number, and known as the Sadako number in Japan. It is tied to the vengeful ghost from the movie The Ring. The movie The Ring, the Japanese version, tells the creepy story of a woman named Sadako who gives a curse to anyone who has seen her video. In the US version, her name is Samara. I've seen both movies, and I have to say, the US movie was far better, more creepier. The book was okay, but once again, too many Japanese references that I did not understand. Of course, it was written for them and not for us, so I can understand that. Watching the movie will bring you to your own death. You will get to a confirmation that you have been cursed through Sadako as well. In the film, Sadako calls anyone who has seen the video right after they stop watching. The number will probably only work in Japan, but you can try calling it if you punch in the 81 Japanese country code first. I didn't even know there was a country code. I don't call overseas, ever. Heck, I don't even call into Mexico. I don't like calling outside the state of Texas. Come to think of it, I really don't like making phone calls. People who have experienced calling her number said that when you dial it, you're going to be able to hear a creepy sound from a woman. It is described to be strange, hair-raising, and eerie noises that you cannot stand and you will hung up immediately. Calling the number is not some kind of a game that you can simply abandon. According to the legend, the person who dares to call this number will have the curse placed on them, and they will meet with some form of an accident in the next 7 days. You run with scissors when you don't have to. Don't call, let somebody else call, and then see if they're still alive 8 days down the road. 216-333-1810 was said to be the suicide hotline hoax. This number was rumored to inflict a heavy emotional toll on callers. Some report feeling an overwhelming sense of despair or hearing haunting cries for help. I'm not going to call the number. I let others be brave for me. What I found were several stories. One being this number would allow you to find a link which would connect you to a rock group and you got to attend a private concert, only open to those with the right connections, which might also lead to the police showing up with pepper spray and batons. In another story connected to this same phone number, it would be traced back to your house, and unknown people would show up and kill not just the caller, but the neighbors in close proximity as well. Strangely enough, this name number is also an actual phone number which belongs to somebody living in Cleveland, Ohio. Which of these stories is the right one? I am not about to fool around and find out. As I was putting my notes together, I got to thinking maybe I shouldn't be giving out these real numbers, or should I? Am I the gatekeeper? Do I have a responsibility to put the information out there for others to decide on what to do? Or do I fudge the numbers and play it safe for my listeners? Nope. These are the numbers that I found. You make the call, literally, on whether to play it safe or run with scissors. 408 634 2806 is said to connect you to the Red Room, which is a sinister dark web live stream rumored to show horrific scenes. Not haunted, but haunting. Things, once you've seen things, you cannot unsee them. Once you've seen a big fat man in a Speedo at the beach, that image is burned into your brain for all of eternity. Callers have said that they have also received strange text messages back from this number and that they are redirected to other unsettling websites. There are some things out there on the web, the dark web, that it is best just not to even mess with. Why go poking the hornet's nest when you don't have to? 801-820-0263 is the Zozo number. This number is linked to a demon said to appear during Ouija board sessions. A lot of these are simply scary stories spread about by folks who enjoy a good, bad story. However, there are things out there that are waiting for the right victim to come along so they can pounce. Callers report hearing growls, screams, or cryptic messages that seem to taunt them. Once they've called this number, they keep getting callbacks over and over again. There is hardly any way to find out if this number really works. Somebody is going to have to call, run the risk of becoming possessed, and then go looking for Father Karras, or somebody like him since he's kind of dead. When it comes to demon names, we have a few old books that claim to be legit. A lot, if not all of these old books, were written in a time when people were collecting rare tomes on all manners of subjects. Because the church had forbade these things, it only made them more valuable. I am not going to look into any of them, but there are many books out there listing demon names and what they do for fun. Like Ouija boards, all these books are not legitimate. All Ouija boards do not open a portal to some demon. However, how do you know that that one that you just picked up or just opened isn't the real thing? If you call 828-756-0109, you will be connected to the crying boy. Callers hear a sobbing young man repeatedly pleading for help. The voice grows more desperate with each passing second, leading to an overwhelming sense of helplessness. Once the connection is made, how do you get rid of it? Kind of like your browser history. There are things recorded, even if you erase it, it's still there, it's just hidden away. If you call and hang up, what is to prevent a return call? This could make life interesting, and I don't much care for that sort of thing. 207-404-2604 is known as the silent caller. This number leaves unsettling voicemails filled with heavy breathing and static, which isn't really silent, but that's what they named it. The silence is punctuated by faint, unidentifiable sounds, which leave an air of menace. Back when I was writing the Laredo Paranormal Research Society's book, Ishmael took me to the Shiloh Cemetery. The headstones had been removed, but not the bodies, and then they built houses on top. I tried a quick EVP using the recorder on my phone. I asked if there was anybody willing to say something, and I held my phone out in front of me for a few seconds. After that, I hung up, and then we tried listening to see if anything had come through, but all we could hear was the wind blowing. Later that afternoon, at exactly 2:46 p.m., I wrote the time down, I received a phone call on the house phone. The caller ID said Chris James was calling me, which is a little weird, and it was my home phone number, which was the phone that I had just answered. I listened carefully, hoping to hear something strange. For 15 seconds, I heard the sound of an open line. It was hollow and mysterious. Made my skin crawl, but I can't say why. My cell phone was sitting on the counter right next to the home phone. When I listened to the recorder, all I heard was the sound of me asking the question and then the wind blowing for 15 seconds. That's how long the phone call lasted to the house. My wife always says, don't bring anything home with you, as I head out on an investigation, but that time I think I might have. Anytime something odd happens, I try to write it down with as many details as I can. This might be just some notes that are never followed up on, or it might add substance to someone else's story. You never know as time goes by where these stories are going to lead. Write them down, keep track of them. Sometimes it just something happened, and other times it might be something important. 888-382-1222 is the collector's curse number. The story is a not very nice guy was in charge of repossessing things from those who couldn't pay their bills. The thing is, if you agree to pay and then you don't, even if you can't, it is still a form of theft. If you take some furniture from a furniture rental store and you tell them, I will pay you X amount of dollars each month, and then you don't pay it, even because you can't, you're still stealing that furniture. Keep that in mind. People buy things they can't afford and then they get all mad about somebody telling them that they need to cough up the money or return the items. Stay out of debt and you won't have this problem. Dave Ramsey says, stop spending money you don't have. Act your wage. Cursed by an obsessive collector, this number emits ghostly voices demanding, don't take my things. You might hear chilling screams or whispers in the background as well. 555 555 5555 is the Hollywood number. If you watch a movie or a TV show and there's a phone number, it will almost always be just a bunch of fives. If you decide to call a number consisting of nothing but fives, you will be connected to an eerie sounding static and ghostly sounds, or the operator, which nowadays is just a recording, will say that you have reached a number that is not a working number. Some people say they've heard faint echoes or voices that they can't understand. It boggles the mind to read about folks doing things like this. If this is a bunch of kids, I can understand it, but I hear about adults, or those that pretend to be adults, calling these numbers to find out what might happen. What's that old saying? Fool around and find out? I know it's not fool, but this is a family show. 700 0000, the void. Said to connect the desolate void, calling this number feels like reaching into the abyss. You may hear your name whispered or chilling silence that seems to stretch endlessly. 303 309 0004 is the unknown warning. Some callers say they've received cryptic warnings from an unknown voice hinting at dangers to come. A deep voice whispers, be careful, or watch your back. But there's no indication of what the danger might be. Being a little bit more careful after hearing these warnings might just save your life. Or maybe it's just a general alert. Being a little bit paranoid at all times is a good thing. Might save your life as well. If you call 630-296-7536, you'll reach the death countdown. A voice on the line is counting backwards. The voice grows increasingly insistent, heightening the sense of terror. Most people hang up before they get to the final number. We don't know if anybody has stayed on the line until the end. If you want to try it, let me know how it goes. But it's not my fault if you don't make it to the end of the numbers. 347-292-1624 is called the Random Screamer. The scream is said to be so startling that people have dropped their phone after hearing it. 999 is the emergency spirit number. Callers report hearing faint cries for help or ominous warnings from an untraceable source. My brother used to be a prison guard. They didn't issue them radios. Instead, if something went wrong, say the prisoners were trying to kill each other, or maybe they were trying to kill him, He had to run to the phone, which was mounted on the wall, dial 999 before exiting in a hasty manner. And it was a dial phone. Haunted or haunting phone numbers. Just some stories I am not willing to look into. Yes, I did get a little off the subject with some of these numbers, but that's how my research led me. How about a haunted alarm clock? Way back in 1988, my class arrived in Laredo to get sorted out before we went to the Border Patrol Academy. We stayed at a motel where we had to pay our own rent, as well as buy our own meals for 3 weeks. Every class after us got per diem. The rent was paid, their meals were paid by the government, not our class. The 226 has a reputation for being the most abused and the most grudges and fights of any class before or since. We lost 45 agents in one nasty incident due to a young woman of negotiable affections. The first day we got to know each other before we got on the plane and flew to not Glencoe. No, we went to Alabama, Fort McClellan. We're staying there at the hotel that I don't think it even exists anymore. And, well, you get to know who's around you, where everybody is from, who they are, what they know, who they know. There was a guy, this is completely off the subject. There was one guy, I looked at him, he looked at me, and it's that thing where you get that feeling that you know each other, but you just can't quite figure it out. And he was from the valley and I was from the Houston area, and we tried comparing a few notes. It's like, have you ever been here? You ever been there? You ever been here? Finally, he discovered that we had been in firefighting class together at Texas A&M. We sat right across the room from each other, so we kind of got to stare at each other the whole time we were in school. So, and then don't you know, we wind up in the Border Patrol together. Well, there was one guy in our class who looked exactly like Alex Karras from Blazing Saddles, only a bit shorter. We began calling him Mongo. The instructors heard us calling him Mongo, and they began using the name as well. Soon we couldn't remember what his real name was. His dad had been a Border Patrol agent, and his grandfather had been a Border Patrol agent. His great grandfather had been in the absolute first class. Mongo was the fourth generation Border Patrol agent. We didn't get rooms when we got to the academy like everybody else did. We had army barracks. We also had army chow. Food lovingly cooked and served by army personnel who didn't really seem to love us. In fact, I kind of got the impression they hated our guts, but I couldn't say why. Well, actually, I probably could, but I'm not going to. Mongo had an old Big Ben alarm clock. The kind you had to wind up and it had two big brass bells on the top that a striker arm would swing back and forth and hit, and that's the sound that would wake you in the morning. Had a little dial that you would set on the front that would tell you what time the alarm would go off. Monday morning, the alarm went off and we all rolled out of our bunks and started getting ready to face the day. Somebody noticed it was only 2 o'clock in the morning. We all just figured that Mongo had set his alarm too early and we tried to get a few more hours of sleep. Tuesday morning, the alarm went off at 2:30 and we yelled at Mongo to shut the thing off. That night, Mongo was very careful to set the alarm, wind his clock, and hit the sheets. Wednesday morning, the alarm went off sometime around 2. Thursday morning, the alarm went off at 3. Mongo swore that he hadn't even set the alarm. That night, he didn't even wind the spring. Yet, Friday morning at 3 a.m., the alarm went off. The clock wasn't even ticking, but the bells were ringing. Saturday, I saw Mongo taking the alarm clock apart. He then began walking through the building, dropping pieces in each of the many trash cans. He said that just in case, he didn't want that alarm clock putting itself back together. You know, better safe than sorry. Why this clock would ring early in the morning, even when it wasn't wound up? Don't know. Baker's wedding dress. The story goes back in 1849 in Altoona, Pennsylvania. There was a beautiful young high society millionaire named Ann Baker who fell in love with a young man that worked in one of her father's factories. His name was Elias Weatherby. Ann Baker's father wanted his daughter to marry somebody with money, high society, and he forbade her to marry this guy. Well, her heart was yearning for this young laborer to whom she had secretly become engaged, and she bought a wedding dress. Upon learning of this engagement, her father banished her daughter's fiance from the city, condemning the young woman to spinsterhood and bitterness until the day of her death in 1914. At some point in time, the dress was placed on a mannequin that sat in front of a mirror outside of Anna's bedroom. There's no information on whether she put it there or somebody else did it to needle her. After Anna's death, her home became a museum where the piece is kept and is said to move as if being moved around by a frustrated bride who was maybe trying it on. It is said that Anne was so in love with Elias Weatherby that after her unrequited love, it led to her having a life of sadness and loneliness, and she decided to burden her dress with all the negative emotions that she had experienced. Having never worn the dress to her wedding, the accumulated emotions supernatural permeated the fabric. The dress is said to possess a shadowy energy that can affect those who get too close to it. Visitors to the Baker Mansion often claim to feel an eerie presence near the dress, and there have been reported sightings of a ghostly figure dressed in white near the display. Some accounts also suggest that the dress has caused misfortune in the lives of those who have possessed or otherwise tampered with it. From biblical times forward to the 19th century, brides did not wear white wedding dresses. Not only was white seen as impractical, it wasn't financially wise to buy a dress that you're only going to wear one time. Most brides simply wore their best dress for their wedding. Brides in the lower classes often wore anything that they could get their hands on. If they had money, they might have a fancy looking gown, but still it was something they were going to wear after the wedding. In 1840, Queen Victoria married Prince Albert in a can. I couldn't help but pass on that one. I hope a few of y'all get that. Do you have Prince Albert in a can? One of the first heavily photographed royal weddings of all times. She chose to wear a white dress even though she was told not to. The dress was made by a company that was in dire straits and they needed some help financially. So the queen herself wore this dress made by this uh, manufacturing company and helped bail them out. Brides all over the world saw Queen Victoria in a white dress, and from that day on, every bride wanted to be seen in white. The wedding took place in Napoli, Italy, the 15th century. Not much is known other than that somebody had given this young couple a huge silver vase. Sorry about the vase. Yes, this was a dog talking about having broken a vase with his tail, and the dog kept referring to it as a vase. The silver wedding gift weighed 4 pounds, and it was known as the Brosno vase. When the wedding was about to start, the bride was nowhere to be found. So they went to look for her, and they found her laying on the floor, clutching the vase to her chest. Moments later, she was dead. After the funeral, the Brosno vase was given to one of the family members for safekeeping, but within days, they were found dead as well. After the funeral, the Brosno vase was passed on to another member of the family, who was also found dead days later. The family put two and two together and they sought out the guidance of a priest. They believed that whoever had given the bride this vase had put a curse on it or they had used some cursed material to make it with. They were told that they needed to bury the vase on sacred ground. Many believe that it was buried near the same church where the priest had worked, but it is not really known where it was buried, as the vase did not show up in history again for another 500 years. 1988, an unnamed man happened to dig up the vase in Italy, and within it he found a note that said, "Beware, this vase brings death." The man ignored the note and he took the vase to an auction house. It was sold to a local pharmacist for 4 million lira, which is equivalent of about $2,000 today. 3 months later, the pharmacist was dead and his family sold the vase to a 37-year-old doctor. A few months later, the doctor was dead as well. The vase gained a reputation and nobody wanted to even touch it. A collector and archaeologist purchased the vase despite his warnings. 3 months later, the archaeologist was found dead of unknown mysterious infection. The family of the archaeologist threw the vase out the window, but a passing police officer saw the vase come flying out the window. Not knowing the backstory, he picked it up and tried to return it to the family. The family refused to take it, saying, "That thing is cursed. Don't touch it." The officer didn't believe this story, and so he took the vase to the museum and he tried to give it to them. They had heard of the curse and they refused to accept it. With no other choice, the officer placed the vase in a box and he buried it in the cemetery. It is not known which cemetery he buried it in, and so we don't know where the Brosno vase might be hiding today. If you're getting married and somebody gives you a big silver vase, beware. Bela Blasko was a Hungarian stage actor. He played Jesus in the Passion Play. During World War I, Bela joined the home team, fighting against the Allies. He was severely wounded and he was treated as most soldiers were with massive amounts of morphine. Between the wars, that was a good song. Between the wars, Bela decided to try his hand, or rather his whole body, on the silver screen in Hollywood. During immigration process, immigrants were allowed to change their name. This was due to some of their names being too difficult or too long to fit on the documents. Bela Blasco thought about it a second and he decided to use his hometown name and he became Bela Lugosi. Lugosi would become well known for his many character roles during Universal Studios' golden age of horror. His greatest role, of course, was as Count Dracula. That war wound that Lugosi had suffered began to act up, so his doctor prescribed some more morphine. They claim the pharmaceutical companies didn't understand how addictive this drug could be. Just like heroin, which is one time was an over-the-counter drug. Lugosi became addicted just like Peter Lorre. The Lugosi legend centers around his personal makeup mirror. Lugosi kept the same stage mirror his entire career. There was a reason. It was said that Lugosi, as a young, struggling actor, might have dabbled in the occult. In order to ensure success, Bela was said to have invoked an ancient Romani demon using magic mirror process. His mirror was used as a portal to some unknown demonic world. Lugosi failed to realize any deal with the devil is a trap. His later troubles with his health and his finances might have been a direct result. Most cultures that cite the various rituals for mirror magic say demons will be trapped within the glass. One must keep the mirror covered when not being used in order to summon the dark being. If not, you can use their powers to influence others foolish enough to gaze at their own reflection. Such an accident happened in the early 1960s when a close friend of Lugosi's looked at himself in the mirror. Bela's friend was found murdered in the house later on. The body was found laying in front of the mirror. During an estate sale, the mirror made its way into another owner's hands. A total of 3 people claimed to have owned Lugosi's mirror. All met with death within days of getting the mirror. In the 1990s, the mirror made its way to Las Vegas Museum of the Paranormal, where it is displayed, covered, of course, in the Bela Lugosi section. Bela Lugosi died in 1956, shortly after receiving treatment for his drug addiction. All of the footage of him in Plan 9 from outer space was filmed before the movie was even scripted. Like I said earlier, I kind of got a little off of my intended subject of things being haunted for unknown reasons. I got a little into the cursed and weirdness section, but that's how the story goes sometimes. Hope you enjoyed tonight's show. If you did, spread it around. Tell other people they should be listening as well. When they step out of the office for a few minutes, if their computer's still on, call up one of the many platforms that I'm on and start playing the show. Maybe they'll thank you for it. Until next time, this is Chris James for Strange Things.
Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man who they say he murdered 3? Strange things have happened there. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight. in the hanging tree.